Well, folks, we have some breaking news out of the state of South Carolina. Representative Nancy Mace, a Republican, has officially launched her bid for the South Carolina's governor election in 2026. Now, Nancy Mace is known for her conservative firebrand style, and Mace aims to succeed term-limited Governor Henry McMaster. Now, as of right now, she says her campaign will focus on protecting South Carolina's conservative values against, quote, woke ideology. Now, her announcement, which she made at the Citadel, signals a fierce GOP primary battle lies ahead. There is an extremely crowded field in the 2026 Republican primary right now. Now, Mace has tried to align herself with President Donald Trump and his agenda to set her apart in this crowd, but will that work? Today, we are going to be diving into the 2026 South Carolina gubernatorial election, so let's jump into it. Now, Nancy Mace currently represents South Carolina in the 1st Congressional District since 2001. She initially won this election back in 2020 at the same time when President Donald Trump lost re-election in 2020. Mace won this election by 1.3 percentage points, an extremely close election in which she ousted a one-term Republican in Joe Cunningham. She went on in 2022 to win by almost 14 percentage points, and then 2024 to win by almost 17 percentage points. Now, Mace was the first woman to graduate from the Citadel Corps of Cadets in 1999, and she's a former state legislator with deep ties to South Carolina's conservative roots. Now, Nancy Mace and Donald Trump have had some, I'd say, shaky relationships over the last number of years. Remember, Nancy Mace initially had criticized President Donald Trump after the January 6th incident that occurred, but now very much likes to align herself as, quote, ultra MAGA or super MAGA. She's a big supporter of the president. And she has pushed some of the most conservative policies so far in President Donald Trump's first term. She pushed policies like banning transgender women from Capitol restrooms. They were not going to allow mentally ill men to go into women's bathrooms in the Capitol, which is great. She also has advocated for vocational education, law and order, and lower taxes in the state of South Carolina. And her shift to more of a conservative Republican, the Trumpism, reflects a commitment to South Carolina's conservative electorate. She has made that shift alongside the shift inside of the Republican Party. Now, she enters an extremely, and I mean extremely competitive primary. You have the lieutenant governor, you have a state senator, you have a U.S. representative in Nancy Mace, and another U.S. representative in Ralph Northam from South Carolina's 5th Congressional District here. And you also have the incumbent Attorney General Alan Wilson from the state of South Carolina. Now, they are all vying, like we said, to replace incumbent Governor Henry McMaster. Now, if you remember, McMaster came into power in South Carolina after Nikki Haley was selected as Donald Trump's ambassador to the United Nations. He ran, obviously, won his election in 2018 by a good margin. Fast forward to 2022, he wins by an even bigger margin. Actually, Joe Cunningham. This is who Nancy Mace unseated in 2020, was actually the nominee in 2022 to be the gubernatorial candidate for the Democrat Party. Now, fast forward to 2026, it is a very crowded primary. Now, Mace has made a lot of claims on why she is running, and actually, let's just take a look. She released this video on Twitter earlier today. Let's just take a listen.
Something's broken in South Carolina. They said stay quiet. I spoke up. They said play nice. I fought back. They said sit down. And I stood up. Corruption, chaos, cowardice, I've seen it all. Get ready, South Carolina. This isn't just a campaign, it's a calling. You and me, this is where our mission begins. God's not done with South Carolina, and neither am I.
Okay, that was kind of a weird announcement video, if I'm just going to be 100% honest, but Mace's claim that she is running to be the next governor of South Carolina because South Carolina has, quote, gone woke under current leadership. I don't really know what that's supposed to mean, but okay. And she says she's going to fight the radical gender agendas and pronouns in schools within the state. She's promised a zero-tolerance approach to crime and eliminated state income tax, which, does that really mean anything? I don't know. I feel like every politician that's running for state government throws that out there. Oh, we're going to eliminate the state income tax. Well, Yeah, you just let me know when you file that. You let me know when that gets pushed through the legislature. And to be honest, Nancy Mace sees herself as the candidate in this race to implement Trump's agenda in the state of South Carolina. She's criticized her GOP rivals for failing to protect women and children in the state, and her campaign, she says, is about action, not establishment loyalty, which I would say is going to resonate with a lot of conservative voters, especially in South Carolina. Look, this is a state that President Donald Trump won in 2024 by 17 points. By 17 points, like, come on. This is about as conservative a state as you're going to find before you kind of get way out there. You know, you go to places like Idaho or Utah or Wyoming or West Virginia. It's like, this is a safe Republican seat that you're looking at here. A state that ultimately will support Donald Trump by big double-digit margins. Now, like we said, she faces competition from the incumbent Attorney General, Alan Wilson, the Lieutenant Governor, and Representative Ralph Norman from the 5th Congressional District. Now, Mace is leading Wilson by about 1% in the recent polls, with about 52% saying they're undecided. Nancy Mace has got 16, Alan Wilson has 15, 52% undecided. That's a big chunk of the electorate, a big chunk of the electorate. Now you can see right here, from another polling from earlier in March, this is before Nancy Mace even announced that she was running, she was getting 29% in this poll with 2% undecided. The lieutenant governor was ultimately getting 31% in this poll. Obviously, this poll is kind of out of date. It's, 4 months old. But now you can see Nancy Mace has led in the most recent poll that we have here from July, the only one that's been taken in the last about 4 or 5 months. And you could see that it's a two-way race right now, but ultimately you have two people who are not too far behind. Yes, they have half the support, but we're talking from 8 to 16. We're not talking about a lot of support here with 52% undecided. 52% undecided. Now, I really think whoever gets Trump's endorsement here is going to be the nominee. Trump's endorsement will be a game changer in this primary. There's no doubt about that. South Carolina is a safe Republican seat. In our gubernatorial map, prediction map, we have this as a safe Republican seat going into 2026. We're not worried about it at all. And South Carolina's GOP primary winner will most likely be favored to win the general election. Now, Mace plans to campaign all across South Carolina's counties, especially in the conservative parts that are upstate. She's leveraging praise from Donald Trump, calling herself, quote, Trump in high heels, which, okay, if that's how you want to go about it. And she is focusing her campaign on culture wars like banning glitter parties and gender ideology in school, pushing economic policies like cutting taxes to boost the economy in South Carolina and South Carolina's competitiveness for businesses. Where are they going to build a manufacturing plant? Where are businesses going to develop? Where are they going to expand? She wants to make South Carolina the breeding ground for economic activity. That is exactly what she wants. But also, I think there's something about Nancy Mace where, you don't know, is it inauthentic or is it just, this fighter mentality? And what I mean by that is she refused to kiss the ring of the establishment. Like she totally refused, but also she's balked at Trump many times. Her and Trump have a very, not a great relationship over the last 4 to 6 years. It's like, remember, Donald Trump endorsed her primary opponent in 2022. Remember that. Ultimately, Nancy Mace did not vote to impeach Trump in 2021, but had a lot of harsh words for the president. So she's really pissed off the establishment and maybe is on shaky ground with the president, but who knows? We all know that most Republicans have been in the crosshairs of President Trump at one time or another, and it's a kind of dangerous place to be, but somehow she's made it through. She's waded through it, and ultimately she is where she is now because of that. And she uses her social media to energize conservative voters and attack different opponents in the Republican primary. And right now, really her aim is to unify the Republican Party around a bold conservative vision for South Carolina, and she believes that she's the one. She's the one. But like we said, the criticism of Trump, will that haunt her now? She had criticism of Trump in 2021, which could have issues with Trump endorsing her. Or there could be doubts among the more hardcore MAGA voters in the state. And her feud with incumbent Attorney General Wilson includes potential sexual assault allegations, which could alienate some conservatives with their feud there. But remember, she also has a lack of executive experience, which Her rivals, like the attorney general, like the lieutenant governor, are probably going to highlight the fact that she was she was one person in a body of 435. She was not an executive decision maker. She has no experience as a decision maker. Now, ultimately, and ultimately, she also served in the South Carolina House of Representatives, where that's what she did. She was a representative there from the 99th district in South Carolina. Now, you can say Mace did own two different businesses from the early 2000s till like 2013, 2014, 2015. But as far as electorally speaking, she does not have that experience as an executive. And a crowded primary risks splitting the vote, the conservative vote, which would probably benefit a moderate in this race, but I don't know. We'll see exactly what happens here. But a lot of her critics are calling her an attention-seeking. She's attention-seeking, and I think there's a case to be made about that, where, there's a lot of former campaign staffers that have come out and talked about that, where Nancy Mace's whole ideals were she was going to do whatever it took to get headlines, to get her name out there. Is that someone who you really want, who's going to jeopardize their values and what they believe just to get attention? I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in the South Carolina gubernatorial election or even South Carolina politics, to be honest with you. As of right now, we all know who Nancy Mace is, who Ralph Norham is. I've heard a little bit of the lieutenant governor and the attorney general. Obviously, the attorney general, she had a spat with Alan Wilson over some potential sexual assault or rape allegations and how he didn't do enough to pursue them. There's a lot of different stuff that's going on in this race that could really muddy the waters up. But all in all, this boils down to what, in my opinion, where's Trump's influence going to come in? Because without his endorsement, it could be very tricky for any of these candidates. With his endorsement, I think they soar. I think they soar to be the nominee. Now, to wrap things up and to conclude things, Nancy Mace's gubernatorial bid, it's a bold move, in her opinion, to keep South Carolina conservative and to stop letting these woke ideologies and ideas seep into the foundation in South Carolina. Her focus on fighting woke ideology, cutting taxes, aligns with the GOP priorities, but the 2026 primary will test her ability to unify conservatives against many rivals that are pretty strong contenders here. We know Nancy Mace has that fighter spirit, and with an alignment with President Trump could make her a formidable candidate. But obviously, we have a lot to see on how this will play out. But folks, that is going to wrap things up for today. As always, folks, drop down below, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future. And folks, we will catch you next time.